everyone. Today we are going to be starting this series. This series was actually going to be a conference, but I was way too exhausted, burnt out from this past school year and just COVID that the conference never really happened. So right here, we're going to be talking about driving change forward and talking about next school year. And so this kind of series will be throughout multiple different times and throughout the month of July. So I hope you're looking forward to kind of reflecting on COVID and some of those changes that took place in our next steps for the next school year. So if you don't know me, my name is Stephanie Howe, and I am an instructional tech coach for Pickerington Local School District. And I'm just going to throw my Twitter right into the chat. Feel free to follow me, follow up with DMs if you have any questions or want to continue the conversation after this session. Also, we have a Google group. So if you want access to the slides, which I'm going to throw in right now, you do need to be part of our Google group. This is going to be a collaborative session as well. So make sure you join so that way you have all the links that you need. Okay. So again, I just threw all of those links. So to join the Google group, you just go to this bit.ly/gold, capital G, capital H, hello. And then if you want to watch this video, if you need help, feel free to do that. And then right here are the slides for today's session. So you can follow along. There are some hyperlinks within the presentation as well. And I will just throw the slides in there as well because it looks like that might have gotten cut off real quick. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So this question kind of hit me as I've been reading different articles and listening to podcasts and that kind of stuff. What have you learned from distance learning that you think will alter your practice in some way when you return to pre-COVID-19 teaching? So when we return after COVID is kind of over, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to be altered, or what has changed your thoughts about teaching pre-COVID? And again, I've been reading a lot, and so I've added some of those articles onto this Wakelet. So feel free to explore the Wakelet and read some of these articles as well. They were really well written about kind of the pandemic, but these were kind of my takeaways. So the first thing is, I think we need to adapt from like teacher is the resource to teacher is the resource provider. I know when I first started teaching, I thought my kids had to get the information from me and from me alone. And then like the internet came about, and especially through COVID, I learned that kids can still learn. They can still learn, and they can still be like owners of their learning through this different resources that is provided to them. So I think sometimes we need to think about, how can I move from what do I need to what do my students need? Focusing more on the student and creating that student-centered environment, and really taking it and allowing the kids to be that resource provider, where we're saying, go to this link and keep exploring, or, hey, have you looked at this? Giving them that immediate feedback, and rather than them having to come to us for the information. So I saw a lot of work boards throughout the pandemic. I saw a lot of like weekly checklists and things like that, which were awesome. And I think it took a little bit of adjustment, but our students were able to adapt. And so we were able to take that from the teacher to now the students were able to explore and create and do all these really cool things. One thing that we really did during the pandemic was a lot of edu protocols. And this is taking it from the teacher as a resource to where now the kids are exploring different things. So we did like number mania. So the kids have like a spreadsheet and they all fill out these different things. And then once they fill that out, they work together to create like an infographic with the combined shared resource database. And it was just mind-blowing to see. And my favorite times was like going into classrooms and there's a group of students with disabilities and they're excelling. They're loving these activities because they can be able to search resources as well. So I think we kind of need to shift and keep that shift going. So just thinking about like next year and how COVID's going to run, if I was back in a classroom, I would probably set up my classroom so my students were working on a checklist or like using the grid method or something, and I would be walking around giving feedback, support, and that kind of stuff, rather than them having to listen to me. In modern classrooms, they do a lot of stuff with like video, and like just using video at the beginning of your lesson. And again, the kids I'm providing the resources for them, but they're watching that video. That frees me up to go and talk with other students. So that was one of my takeaways, was just kind of moving from that teacher is that resource to now the teacher is that resource provider. Number 2, flipping classrooms. So not just like the normal flipped classroom, but like really thinking about flipped classrooms where students can get different presentations and different instructional methods throughout the day. So flipped classroom, it's not like they're doing the video at home. I mean, it could, but maybe I have different stations set up and I've got all these different resources for my students. And again, they're able to learn in different ways. They're able to learn in different instructional methods, which is really cool, because I think sometimes when we flip, and before COVID, I saw a lot of the teacher up in the front of the classroom, direct instruction, where now they only had 2 days. And so the other couple of days, the students had to get information using different methods. They had to get it through, a hyperdoc or using some type of other method in order to understand that material. So I really think we're going to get creative and start to kind of think, okay, how can I kind of flip my classroom? So again, the kids aren't coming to me as the resource, as I'm delivering resources, and I'm able to support them. So that will free us up to, again, meet with small groups and help students in those smaller areas. Curriculum should be ever evolving. And I think this was true. We really drilled down on our curriculum and thought, what is the most essential parts? What skills do students really need? And I saw a lot too, where maybe, for example, we were taking fractions and we took every single step of those fractions and maybe made different skill sets, which really helped us drill down to which part are the students not understanding when it comes to adding fractions. Is it changing the denominators? Is it just adding straight across and saving that denominator? We were really able to look at that and kind of go, okay, what step and where are they struggling? And I think sometimes when we're in our fast-paced world, I mean, even though COVID was fast-paced, we were able to really kind of look and go, okay, what is the most essential skills that our students really need to have? And we were able to make those adjustments and changes on the fly rather than kind of looking and going, let's wait until next year. So I think we need to look at that and kind of think, how can I make this ever evolving and creating those opportunities for our students? All right, number 4, focus on skill sets and the applications of what is important rather than the facts and memorization. So I saw a lot more projects. I saw a lot more activities that the students were creating. And I think we're getting past that facts and memorization. Like, these students are able to look it up on Google within an instant. So I think we're moving towards a really good focus on those skill sets, but how can we keep that up after COVID? How can we allow that in our classroom? And maybe that is project-based learning. Maybe that is problem-based learning. Maybe that's giving kids some times to collaborate with other kids and think outside the box on some of those skill sets that they need to think about, and help them model that. The 5th one is tests will lose their strength as an evaluation tool. And I think when we first hit COVID, teachers a lot of times were kind of freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I have to give this test and I'm not going to know if my students understand the material or not. And so we moved to different assessments that made students demonstrate that they are learning, and it was personalized. There was a lot more choice boards and activities like that, where students could look at the choice board, make a decision on how they wanted to demonstrate their knowledge about the material, which really helped show their knowledge rather than just on a test. And sometimes teachers did keep that test as an option, just so that kids could take a test. And teachers were really afraid of how much more time it would take to grade these assessments. And so I think we also need to remember that immediate feedback is huge. And so if we can give students that immediate feedback in real time, we can do a lot of helpful movement with the student. And so have the student present their projects, have them demonstrate their personal, whatever they are learning, and then grade it right then and there. You don't need to take it home. You can tell them right then and there what their strengths and what their weaknesses were. And then you can just go ahead and put it in the grade book. But I think too that just helps students know, okay, I'm on the right track, or hey, I'm not on the right track. And I think if we're a part of that process as well, in every step of the project, students will know too, okay, I need to make corrections here, or I'm doing a really good job here. So maybe using like a learning roadmap can also help with those bigger projects. And then 6, if after the pandemic, we simply go back to the way things were and continue our old teaching assessments practices, we have blown a once-in-a-time chance to change what education looks like. And I think it's so true. If we don't take what we learned during COVID, this is a one-in-a-lifetime chance to really look at what we did and make those changes for next school year. We really need to pause and look, okay, what did we do? What did we change? I know for us, like, we had more parents coming to meetings because they were in Google Meet. They're able to join from their car, their house, gymnastics practice. They don't need to hire a babysitter. They're able to just log in and join. And that allowed for more parent involvement. And I think if we don't keep that practice, are we missing some of those opportunities that are available for our students? So just really kind of reflecting on some of those things that we did do, or maybe we wish we would have done, and how can we change next school year because of that? All right, so I want to know what you learned. I'm going to throw a Jamboard into the chat. And again, if you're not a part of the Google group, you will not have access to this. But we just kind of want to know, what have you learned? So when you open up that Jamboard, and I'm going to open it up with you, you're going to go to slide number 2. And just grab a sticky note and add, what did you learn from COVID? And if you need more room, you can keep going through, but let's just go ahead and reflect on what we've learned this past school year and how we can keep moving forward. Also, there are going to be a couple more videos in this type of series. So later today, we have, what does COVID look like? So what is life after COVID going to look like? And Danielle is joining me. It's going to be a really fun session, tons of resources and ideas on what life will look like after COVID-19. Right here, this session has already been completed. It was on no looking back and the next steps on what we need to do. And it was a really good session. So if you want to go ahead and watch that one, feel free to watch that one. And then I'm going to talk about coaching through change in a couple, I think it's next week, I can't remember. And then also moving forward with asynchronous learning. So what are our next steps? How can we take those asynchronous learning and move them forward? So right there are going to be 4 sessions within this series. If you are interested, feel free to join in. And thank you again for joining us today. And I'm going to throw the link to the feedback form in case you need a certificate of attendance. It is right there in the chat. Make sure you fill it out, and then make sure you fill out the information out correctly, because it auto-generates the certificate for you. So if you misspell something, it will not come to you. So just make sure you fill it out. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk later today.